Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Keith, I've been smiling all day because the NBA season, it's here. We officially start things tomorrow. You and I both got haircuts. It's like you said before we came on, it's like the first day of school.
Yep.
Let's go. This is awesome.
Yeah, man, I'm fired up. Yeah, tonight's last night. We go to bed without the NBA for
That's
a
right.
little while. We have that one day off there for
Mhm.
election day
Yep.
in November, and then Thanksgiving is also a day off. But other than that, it's pretty much wall to wall NBA until we get to the All-Star break, which is great, man. I'm beyond excited for the season to get started. We got two fun games tomorrow night with all the pageantry of the Nuggets getting the rings and all that stuff, and then the Warriors and Suns, the new look Suns, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story.
I haven't been able to use that drop in so long. We've got breaking news. We have tons of extensions to talk about on this show, but just now broke Jaden McDaniels, 5 years, $136 million extension with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I guess let's start there. Holy moly, that dwarfs all of these other extensions that we're seeing right now.
Yep.
All the other ones that we have to talk about on the show. Keith, what's your initial reaction? 5 years, $136 million for Wolves wing Jaden McDaniels.
My guess is the 136 is probably going to have some bonuses in there on the like. I had said 4 years, 100 for Jaden McDaniels. So that's a little bit above what I had. That would have been 25 million a year. This is 27 and change. So massive. But Jaden McDaniels, if people didn't know, outstanding
Really
season last year. I think got lost a little bit in the Anthony Edwards breakout year and the whole fact that it was, can Towns and Gobert work together, but 12 points per game, 52% from the field overall, 39.8% from three, 74% on minimal free throws, only took under two per game, and was also, for my money, should have been on the all defense team.
Yes.
Last season he was that good. So Jaden McDaniels, I mean, let's go. I mean, what a great deal for him, and I think for the Wolves. And holy cow, is that Minnesota team? They are all in with this group. I mean, that is going to be an extremely expensive roster next year.
Well, I think that the initial reaction, I believe, and I'm not on X right now, so I don't know, but I think the initial reaction is going to be that the Wolves overpaid.
Yeah.
When we compare this to other wings in the NBA, yeah, it's probably a little bit of an overpay. When we look at what some other guys are getting. However, I do wonder, like, the Dylan Brooks contract, did that set the market a little bit for wings? Did that change things at all? That, that's maybe something to consider, but still, this does feel like a lot for Jaden McDaniels. That said, I also agree with you that he's not a household name. He's not a guy that gets a lot of publicity or anything like that, but he's a really good player. He's one of the best defensive wings in the league. He's an efficient scorer, efficient from behind the arc, 1 block, 1 steal per game. So he's got that versatility. This is a guy that I think makes the Wolves much, much better. And this is why, by the way, peek behind the curtain, we were going to do our predictions today, but we had so much news, we're going to push that to tomorrow. This is part of why his involvement is part of why I have the Wolves higher than most people do. It's because I am a big, big believer in Jaden McDaniels. So I do think my initial response is it's a little bit of an overpay, but he is a really, really good player, better than people realize. So I don't think it's that much of an overpay. And it's possible, given the fact that he's just 22 years old, actually just turned 23, it's possible that by the end of this deal, we're talking about it as a bargain, particularly as the cap continues to go up.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really good. I mean, this is under $30 million a year. With that, I mean, they like I said, the bigger surprise for me is Minnesota is, I mean, they are locked in to being wildly expensive, going forward. You've now got next year's roster McDaniels, assuming it's a standard structure, will probably start 24, 25 million-ish in that range. You've got Edwards at 35.5, potentially 42.6 if he makes All NBA. Gobert 43.8. Towns' new contract kicks in right now, projected at 49.7 million. Nas Reed, I think people have forgotten.
That's
He got
right.
extended.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
When you said Nas Reed, I went, oh my gosh, I forgot about Nas Reed.
14 million for him. So I mean, that's oh boy, that is a lot of money locked into 5 guys on this Wolves team. I mean, that is incredible amounts of money.
I mean, so I guess this all begs the question for Minnesota, like Kyle Anderson is a guy that's been important for them. He's an unrestricted free agent next year. What happened? What does this mean for him? What is it? There could be some pain to come in terms of some tough decisions because they are so committed to this group. I guess you do have Mike Conley's deal come off the books, and so that helps. I'm
Then
sure
you need a point
make
guard.
24 million, but you still need a point guard. You still need to fill that role.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to be interested to see what the Wolves do moving forward here. Keith, I don't have the numbers in front of me, and you're the guy for this. How are we looking here for Minnesota now and the super tax or the second tier apron?
Yep. So I just plugged in a placeholder for McDaniels for just Edwards, Gobert, McDaniels, Reed, and Towns. They're going to be up around 167 million.
Ooh.
That is only about 5.5 million or so under the luxury tax line. So by the time you fill it out, you're going to be up and over the first apron easily. And then you're going to be probably pushing up against that second apron, because that's roughly, let's call it 23 million in change to fill out 9 roster spots. So that's not very much.
That's tough. So then we should assume then, based on those numbers, that next summer Minnesota will not be a mid-level exception team.
No,
They will definitely not be. And in fact, they could. I mean, depending on how all these numbers play out, what they do with Kyle Anderson, they could be a team that doesn't even have access to the taxpayer if we're talking about that second tier apron.
Yeah. It's gonna be more that is the back and forth, right? Because you got to remember, if you sign that taxpayer, and I apologize, I'm not looking at the camera because I'm watching TweetDeck because more stuff is rolling in, but nobody's really saying anything of importance. It's if you use the taxpayer, Emily, you get hard capped at the second apron. Correct. So they're going to be so tight to that because they have so many roster spots to fill. That's going to be tough. My guess is with Minnesota, there's 2 things at play here. One is good player, right? We want to keep him around. But the other part is, remember, this team has no draft picks going forward. They are leveraged on picks from the Gobert trade. So this is a way to, hey, the talent we have now, we have to keep. And then we'll figure it out, by filling out with minimums or whatever it is through the remainder of this.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, great way to start off our Monday.
Right.
Little breaking news in the form of a massive contract extension. That was a shock. Not that the extension got done, but the amount that it got done for. That was certainly a surprise. Again, he's a very good player, and the Wolves, they're going all in with this group. I think they're going to be tough this year.
Yeah, we'll get into that tomorrow.
Yes, we'll get into that tomorrow. You're not as high on them as I am, so we'll have plenty of time to discuss them tomorrow. But always fun when we get some breaking news here on the show. Let's get into a much more somber story. And I think it was the biggest news with all the extensions going in, and you guys know we love to nerd out over the math and all that stuff. But I hated seeing this story. When this popped up on my phone, I was not happy. The Grizzlies lose Steven Adams for the year, out for the season due to knee surgery. He had tried to rehabilitate his knee without going the surgical route, and it did not work. So now the Grizzlies, and we've talked about this, the Western Conference, it is going to be insane this year. Any win streak or losing streak could vault you into or out of the playoffs. It's going to be a very tight race. Injuries will be a big factor here. The Grizzlies are going to be without Brandon Clark, who's still out with that Achilles injury. They're now without Steven Adams, and don't forget John Morant is out the first 25 games of the season. This is not a good spot to be starting the season from if you are the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, I mean, John Morant out, Steven Adams out, 2 starters. Brandon Clark, their best backup, big, also out. He's likely out for the entire season. So just it's tough. And they were in a spot where they had a lot of guaranteed contracts. So Memphis was not in a place to really go and add more to their roster than what they did. They now are down to 15 players on guaranteed contracts. So not even at a spot to go do something. I said over the weekend, I thought what they were going to do was John Morant, after 5 games, they'll be able to transfer him to the suspended list, which will open up a roster spot. And he'll go on that suspended list for the next 20 games. My assumption was they would bring back Shaq Harrison, who they clearly have a level of comfort with. He's been in the organization for a number of years. I know he finished last year with the Lakers, but he'd been with the Grizzlies and the G League prior to that. My thought process was they bring him in, and then you've got a guy. I wonder now if they go looking for a big, because their big man rotation, Xavier Tillman presumably starts next to Jaren Jackson Jr., but then you're down to Santi Aldama, who I like, and coming off a big summer with Spain in the World Cup. But then you're talking Kenneth Lofton Jr., maybe Zaire Williams, Jake Laravia, David Roddy, all playing up a position. You're down to it very, very quickly. And they don't even have a G League guy that's stashed on like a 2-way. That's a big. Their G League guys are 2 wings and a point guard. So interesting spot for the Grizzlies to be in for sure.
So the Grizzlies obviously made a big move this summer when they parted ways with Tyus Jones. They went and got Marcus Smart to help sort of bridge the gap while John Morant is out. But now without Steven Adams and without Brandon Clark, you're missing your starting and essentially your backup center. It's going to be interesting to see how aggressive they are in getting something done. This is a team that was really good last year. Obviously, they were the 2 seed in the Western Conference, but without they need to find something. They need to find a stopgap. I think at least a body like right now. They need to find somebody who can be part of their rotation. Maybe not a starter. It's thank goodness they've got Jaren Jackson Jr. who can slide over and play the 4. Maybe it's not ideal that he does that all season long, but I think that's going to be a necessity here. I don't know the trade market this time of year. Its teams are not typically ready to make moves right now, aside from, of course, the James Harden thing, which we'll talk about later. But that could be an issue for them because teams aren't going to be ready to make moves just yet. Typically this time of year, they're going to need to go find somebody, like you're saying. And the pickings, they are slim.
Yeah, that's the challenge is, where you're going. So what you start doing, and I saw some people doing this a little bit on Twitter, you start looking at what teams have bigs that are maybe further down on the bench or like everybody. I think they all went to Portland. Yep. Hey, what would it take to get Robert Williams? Because that's a pretty acquirable contract because he makes right around 15 million or so. So that becomes something where, all right, you could probably pull that off. And maybe you could do something like, all right, we're going to give you Brandon Clark as the matching salary, but then we're really going to pay for him in picks, or a pick or whatever it is. And if you're Portland, you're probably thinking, all right, that's probably fair enough value for us because we're rebuilding. We can have Clark rehab with us and figure that out down the line. So it's a interesting spot. My guess is we don't see anything probably till December when the trade market opens up more around December 15th. They'll muddle through the first part of this season with, what they can get out of guys, unless it's such an incredible disaster. But Xavier Tillman was okay for them last year after Adams went down. I think there is a level of comfort with him. If I'm Xavier Tillman, I'm having the conversation now of, hey, guys, I'm extension eligible. Let's have this conversation now. Yeah. If I'm Memphis, I might be like, yeah, if we can get him for $8-9 million a year, yeah, I'll keep going, my friend. He's there he is, way
there
down
he is.
there, 1.9 million.
1.9.
Final year of his minimum deal that he signed. So I'm probably thinking, let's try to get Xavier Tillman locked up before all of a sudden Xavier Tillman plays well enough that now the extension talks start at 10-12 million a year versus 7-9 million.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. That's, I mean, opportunity here for Tillman perhaps to cash in at this moment. Let's see if he's able to do that. Last thing on the Grizzlies, because I know we do need to move on, but I see he's at the top of the screen right now. Jake LaRavia. I thought he popped a bit in summer league, so he's a guy to keep an eye on. Not a big, not he's not the guy that's going to fill in here or anything, but just he's on my list of players to keep an eye on, and he was on the screen, so I wanted to make sure I mentioned him.
Yeah, for me, the guy I really like is Zaire Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Really was coming along strong at the end of his rookie year, fell off last year, really a lost season due to injuries. I think he's going to have a chance to play a lot, whether it's at the 3 or now you may be pressing him into service at the 4. The big thing is Jaren Jackson Jr. has to be better and not get into foul trouble. This year. You can no longer afford the games where he's got 2 fouls in the first 4 minutes and is on the bench for most of the first half. You need to be out on the floor, and he's got to hit the boards better. It just can't be 4 or 5 rebounds per game average. He's got to be up around 8, 9 rebounds per game. Otherwise, you're putting just way too much on Tillman and all the guards and wings on that team to get on the glass. He's got to be better on the boards, and he should be. There's no real reason why he can't be a 9 rebound per game guy. Like he should be in that range.
He should. Absolutely. Man, I think you're right. He's got to stay out of foul trouble. That's always been a big thing for him. All right, let's jump into some of these extensions. Let's start off here with Denver. Zeke Naji getting an extension. He can play. He can play a bit at the 5 in certain situations. Play the 4 as well. But 4 years, $32 million. Denver just keeps doing what they're doing. They're finding bargains, finding values, and they're going to be obviously a pretty pricey team. And so it's important that they're able to hang on to some of these assets moving forward. So I think this is a fine extension for them. Yeah,
this is, you're talking the room exception. Is this actually what this is the equivalent of? And that's fine. Like I have a, real, no real problem with that one. I think, people are a little like $8 million a year for Zeke Naji. Denver structured it. It starts high, it goes down year 2, year 3, and then year 4, because it is a player option. It's the same value as year 3. An option year can't be less in value than the year preceding it. It has to be the same.
Oh, I didn't know that rule.
Yeah, so that's just a little quirk of the way it works with options. So with Zeke Naji, he's got to stay on the floor. One, has to stay healthy, and he just has to make shots. He made shots his first 2 years and looked pretty good. Last season really struggled to make shots, struggled with injuries, lost his role. But I think their hope is that he can really play in next to next or behind Nikola Jokic rather as a backup 5. So you're talking about a 10 to 12 minute a night role, maybe 15 in the regular season. So that's not the end of the world.
Well, and the alternative for them would be DeAndre Jordan. So the hope is that Naji, obviously younger, is a guy that can get in there and get the job done for them.
There's no real small ball options on that team either. Like they're not sitting on other guys like they were last year, where it became Jeff Green. Really became the backup 5. You don't have that with this team. That could be something maybe they address down the line with a trade. But for now, that's kind of where they're at.
All right, let's get into this one. This was great to see. He battled ankle injuries, and now Zach Collins gets a 2-year, $35 million extension with the Spurs. He's going to be a guy who can play alongside Victor Wembanyama, who can play in place of Wembanyama at times. But there were moments here over the last couple of years where we've thought Zach Collins, this might be the end. He may just be done. He may never get back.
Yep.
And so to see him not just battle all the way back, not just get back onto the court, but get back onto the court and get himself a real deal. I mean, $35 million over 2 years. Great to see, and really happy for Zach Collins and the perseverance that he showed to recover from these injuries.
Yeah, and how this one works just structurally for Zach Collins, what he actually gets here is this is like a modified version of what I like to call the Dinwiddie extension. So this is when a player is below the average salary. What the teams can do is they take the average salary, which this year is about 11.5 million, and the player can get, with the new extension rules, 140% of that in year 1. So that bumps him up to 16 and change. And then next year it's like 18 and change. So that's what his two numbers will be at. It comes in just slightly less than 35 million for Zach Collins, but you get him into that spot there where now all of a sudden you're in a place where he's making pretty good money. But just kind of to build on what you were saying about his career, he was awful as a rookie, and it looked like a completely wasted first round pick by Portland. Second year, played much better. Often the case with a big man, right? It takes them sometimes a little while to figure it out. Then over the course of 2 seasons, he played in 11 games. His last 2 years with Portland moved on and let him go. San Antonio signed him to a contract. I very clearly remember you and I basically being like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
That's
deal?
right.
Why are they giving him more than a minimum? And he's, outplayed, what he ended up getting. It was a very lightly guaranteed contract too. Pretty good in his first year as he worked his way back in 28 games. Then last year in 63 games, 12 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, and 52% from the floor, including 37% on 2.5 threes per game. Zach Collins is a good basketball player. He's going to be really big. People keep saying, why is Wemby not playing the 5? One, they don't want him to. They think he's a 4, and they have Zach Collins to kind of back him up and do that work there. So this is good work by the Spurs, kind of locking in a player that I think is going to be important for them over the next couple of seasons to help Wembanyama develop.
By the way, I mean, I know it's only preseason, but the stuff Wembanyama is pulling off, oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. Like, this is the Spurs every day. Every day we're seeing more of this. They're shooting up higher and higher on League Pass rankings because everybody's going to be tuning in to see this guy. I mean, absolutely ridiculous stuff.
I retweeted
stuff that a player. First of all, you don't see players his size, but stuff that you like a human being his size shouldn't be able to do some of the things that he's doing. Whew, Keith, it's going to be fun watching him. That's for sure.
I retweeted that picture of him blocking the Andrew Wiggins 3-pointer.
Oh yeah.
And like a couple of people were like, are we sure this isn't photoshopped?
It looks like one of those forced like, you know how they shot the movie Elf with all the forced perspective stuff? It looks like that, but it's not. Or
I
The
watched
Hobbit,
it live and rewound it and had to rewatch it 6 times because I didn't really understand what happened. And that's going to be a regular thing with Wembanyama, where I think we're going to be kind of constantly like, how? Like, what just happened? And you're going to hit pause, rewind, and go back and watch and have to watch it a handful of times to understand it, which is, he's going to be fun, man. That Spurs team, they're doing some stuff. Jeremy Sohan's going to start at point guard, which is really interesting. Man, they're going to be absolutely massive across the board. And I'm very, very curious to see how that whole thing comes together.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Denny Avdia got an extension as well. 4 years, $55 million. Again, I think that he's a young player on the rise, and this should be a pretty solid deal, I think, moving forward, as long as he continues this ascent.
Yeah, this is roughly the non-taxpayer MLE amount for Avdia. I bet it'll be structured very close. He has signed it now. It came through. Josh Robbins of The Athletic yesterday had some reporting of the number was agreed upon, but the structure had not been how they were going to do that. If you're Washington, there's some benefit to, hey, let's start him high and bring the number in lower. But for Avdia, you might want to kind of do one of those where, hey, let's start a little higher, then go down and then go back up, because if you want to extend off that, you want the number higher. I talked about that with the Devin Vassell structure of his extension, but I think this is fine. It's funny because a lot of people are like, well, if he could shoot, like, I'd be okay with it. If he could shoot, he'd be getting $100 million in an extension, because that's about all he can't do. He's a pretty good ball handler, a pretty good passer, good defender. He looks better than he probably is just because of who he's defending with the Wizards a lot of times, but he can defend.
Shots fired at the Wizards defense.
He's a really good rebounder for his position too. So I'm good with this one. I think this is more than fair for Avdia.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with it as well. And I wonder, with Avdia getting this extension, not that they're the same player or anything, but does this look better even in the wake of the Jaden McDaniels extension? 4 years, 136, or do you think there's enough of a gap?
Yeah, there's enough.
And obviously very different players, but still.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty massive gap with those.
Yeah, I'd agree. There is. All right. Aaron Nesmith, 3-year, $33 million extension.
And this one's going to be 11 million flat per season, no options, all fully guaranteed. It looks like.
Yeah. So this is the exact same contract that Gabe Vincent got with the Lakers.
Yeah.
This is slightly below the MLE, which I think is pretty reasonable for a player of his caliber.
Yeah, I'm a little. This one was a little bit of a surprise to me. I'm happy for Aaron Nesmith. Went through a ton of injuries. His first 2 years in the league with the Celtics. Every time he was getting ready to carve out a role, he'd get hurt again. Last year with the Pacers, remember the Pacers played those really weird lineups when they were healthy at the beginning of the year, where it was Miles Turner with really 5 or 4 guards around him, because it was Halliburton and Nembhard in the backcourt, and then Hield and Nesmith up front. And that was just, a different look. And Nesmith was called upon to play big quite a bit. He had to defend a lot of opposing fours, held up fairly well there, and he stayed healthy. He played in 73 games. He made shots at a pretty good clip, 37% from 3 on 4.5 attempts per game, 10.1 points per game. So it's in the end, it's probably okay. I think it probably should have been a touch lower. Like, I think maybe if it was, 9 million AAV, I feel a little bit better about it. But at the end of the day, 2 million is not going to matter. It's not really even going to, be anything for the Pacers. So I think it's, relatively fine.
Well, and for the Pacers hanging on to young talent, that's something that's important too. And I could see where maybe it's a little bit much, but again, he's a 23-year-old that just shot 37% from 3, 84% from the line, and averaged a half a block, a steal, and 10 points per game. Yeah. I get maybe his role gets reduced a little bit this next year with the players that the Pacers have brought in, but talent-wise, I think it's fine. And here's the other thing too is at some point, Indiana is going to want to make the leap. Right. The leap from, hey, we're on, and maybe they make that leap this year. Maybe it's next year, whenever. At some point, Indiana is going to want to go from being, we're okay, but we're not really in the playoff mix, to we are a playoff team. And I think when that time comes, there's going to be a trade down the line for them. And this is the type of contract, the size of contract that is very easy to throw into a deal in order to make money work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that part of it is definitely true too. I just think they're in a spot where you could have even seen them maybe let this play out and go the cap space route this summer. Now it seems more like it'll stay over the cap. I am wondering what happens with Obi Toppin. You would just be basically anything you extend him for is a bet on potential, because that's all it's been so far is just flashes. Yeah. But if you think he could be a part of something, that may be one where we get news a little bit later here of, hey, Obi Toppin is also extended, and we kind of go with that. So yeah, I'm curious to see.
Okay. We do have a little bit of James Harden. It's not really news. It's just he's still not there. He's not with the 76ers. He's still away from the team. I didn't see, I don't know if you saw, but is he in Houston? Do we know where he is?
Yeah. So
where in the world is James Harden?
I saw some Houston reporters report he's in Houston. Apparently his mother has been ill. But even the Houston reporters were like, that's essentially why he's there. But it's, really it's, he wants traded. So that's, well, what's going on there? So yeah, I mean, but we're going to see, right? Thursday, they don't play till Thursday. They're one of the couple teams that doesn't open up a couple days after everybody else. So we'll see. But yeah, my guess is he just doesn't show up, and then we're gonna find out how ugly this can get.
Yeah, I would say if he's he's not with the team right now, that it's not looking good for him being there on Thursday for their season opener against the Bucks. All right. The Suns have also waived Keon Johnson. We knew they were going to have to make
it hasn't happened just yet. But,
right. But that's what their intention is. Does that impact your thinking of the DeAndre Ayton trade at all?
No, because Johnson was just a throw in to make the salaries work and balance things. I do kind of like Keon Johnson. My guess is what we'll see is somebody will pick him up probably on a two-way contract at this point and bring him in. And then, maybe he outplays that and gets there. Again, it's all flashes with him. He played a little bit for the Clippers, a little bit for the Trailblazers, never really played enough to, fully feel good. It's just always an oddity a bit when a former first rounder gets waived before the end of the rookie scale contract. But this one is, it's a numbers game. We saw Ish Wainwright got waived over the weekend by Phoenix. He then was claimed off waivers by Portland. So yeah, we'll see with Keon Johnson. I kind of like him, but I think probably a two-way contract and play his way back through that process.
Yeah. I think he'll wind up somewhere. He'll wind up somewhere.
Yep.
All right. Last thing we've got for today, as expected, Jeremiah Robinson Earl waived by the Rockets. Think he gets picked up somewhere?
Yeah, this one is one wouldn't shock me if a team claims him that has a small trade exception. He makes 1.9 million. So you could see a team theoretically say, yeah, let's grab him. He was pretty good 2 years ago for OKC. Last year, injuries, didn't play a lot, really fell completely out of the plans, was just, more or less, we got to cut down. Let's move him in that Kevin Porter Jr. salary shuffle trade that they made with Houston. So in Houston, there's not a spot. They love Boban in Houston, so he's not going to go anywhere. And they like him in the locker room with their young guys. So he was very likely to stick. So just no roster spot for him in a crowded front court. So that turns into, all right, now you're off. If the Knicks had an open roster spot, I would assume they'd pick him up, another Villanova guy, to New York. But they don't have an open roster spot as it stands right now. So my guess is probably again the other guy maybe catches on with a two-way, maybe plays in the G League somewhere. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, lots going on around the league, and we've got basketball tomorrow night. So plenty to get into tomorrow's show. We will have our season predictions. How do you want to do it? You want to do the whole table? Actually, Keith, I said table on Twitter the other day, X, and I got in the comments, you've been watching soccer, haven't you?
Yep. I get that when people say match, right? No, I hear you. Yeah. I think we just run through the whole thing. Even if it's a little bit of a longer show, run through both conferences and knock it all out and go. We're pretty much going to tell you how we see each conference playing out, who the playoff teams will be, who will be in the play-in, who will not be in the playoff in the postseason. Then we'll probably pick, like we always do, conference finals and then our finals predictions. Maybe we'll throw in an MVP, defensive player of the year pick, but we're not going to go super in depth on all the awards because you'll have a game to prep for, and I'll have a game to prep the recliner to sit on and watch, I guess.
That's true. It's going to be a busy day, but be on the lookout for that. That'll be coming out tomorrow on the Front Office Show. Again, make sure you are subscribing and turn on those notifications as well. Until next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.